you doing, Russell?
I'm really happy to see you, Michael. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I was just telling the folks you were about to come on and letting them know that tomorrow is the birthday, and all week what we're doing is celebrating how to say yes to ourselves. And we have a summit that's going on tomorrow at 4 p.m. It's absolutely free to everyone. And I know you're on the road, so I just appreciate you stopping by and taking time to be with me today.
I'm very grateful for any opportunity that I get to be in your company. I know what you do. As you know, I've attended Agave, so I've seen you when you're channeling, and I love God, and I like the opportunity to be in the concentrated versions of the Almighty Light.
I appreciate that. Yeah, the last time we saw each other was at Agape, and then I think you went to Australia, then COVID hit, and the traveling stopped for a while. But it was good to see you there. And, obviously I was telling everyone this week, we're dealing with saying yes to ourselves. That's the theme of it. And on your website, you say that you're a comedian and that you like change and that you're an activist. And you're here for awakening. And I know that a lot of people know you as the individual who's been in these movies. You're a comedian, but I really dig, your podcast, Under the Skin, and you really are becoming a powerful instrument for change, a powerful instrument for awakening. When did that emerge through you? When did that become part of your really priority, your dynamic?
Well, thank you for saying, firstly, Michael. And what happened for me is because I was a drug addict, dependent on crack and heroin, I was shown the 12-step method of recovery, and the 12-step method of recovery is a process of spiritual awakening and then sustained connection with God through the practices of a certain method, and by a membership of a community of other drug addicts and alcoholics. For me, and the program in its original form states even that the problem is not the chemical that you're dependent on or even the behavior that you're dependent on, but an egocentric worldview, infatuated with the ego, infatuated with the self and the edicts of the self. The more I learned about this, the more I understood that this described me, that it didn't even matter if I stopped taking drugs, that I would find another way of expressing this constant wanting, this tendency to identify with external stimuli instead of the internal state. Through letting go of drugs and alcohol, through learning more about this program through the people that have walked the path ahead of me, and because the program encourages prayer, meditation, and a close conscious contact with a higher power of your own understanding that I call God, it meant I became curious and investigative of other spiritual ideas, and got the opportunity to meet teachers like you, great people like Brene Brown or Tony Robbins or Muji, Wim Hof, Eckhart Tolle, and like Radhanath Swami. So I've been hanging with masters, but only as a result of nothing else works. I've been dependent on so many things,
Absolutely. So
yeah.
it's somewhere along the line, you had to give yourself permission to break out of that old paradigm and to say yes to the real Russell. And that's what we're seeing on your podcast. Tell everybody the name of your two. I know you have two. You have Under the Skin and Above the Noise. They're available on Apple Podcasts and Luminary. And
That's correct.
These are weekly, right?
Yeah, Under the Skin, that you've been a guest on. In every episode, I talk to a teacher or an academic or from whom I try my best over the course of that hour or hour and a half to glean deep wisdom. I happened to speak to you, Michael, on the same day that I spoke to that other great spiritual Michael Singer, the writer of the book Untethered Soul, and both of you told me the same thing. And both of you told me the same thing, not in response to a question. Just out of nowhere, both of you said something like, you do not need to make a plan. Make yourself right and everything will unfold for you. Make yourself right. You said it, and then a few hours later, I was talking to Michael Singer, and he said it, and I've never forgotten that because I thought that's interesting information. I always think I have to control everything. I have to organize it. But in this saying yes to yourself, this idea that you're discussing, perhaps you tell me, Michael, is it an invitation to like a kind of higher aspect of the self to guide your life? Is it an invitation to connect with an aspect of yourself that may otherwise be dormant?
Absolutely. I mean, there's well, it's an unfolding process of who you are. It's like we are perfect ideas held in the mind of God, and these ideas are unfolding. But we're at a stage of our evolution where we have to say yes to it. It doesn't just happen. It happens just according to grace as we give our permission. And then what happens is inspired wisdom, transforming knowledge starts to flow through us in a language and in a way that we can understand. And sometimes it thwarts our plans. Sometimes our plans are too small. Sometimes our plans are emanating from the ego, are trying to fit into the status quo or to follow the crowd. And then we begin to get a little inspired wisdom through our intuition and direct knowing. We realize, wow, we were going down the wrong path. It wasn't really for us. That was for somebody else. And so in saying yes to ourselves, it doesn't mean you just throw plans away, but they're more written in pencil so that when the inspiration comes, you adjust. It's like, just like flying on a plane, the pilot is always adjusting, based on climate change and wind and weather. No one goes straight from LA to Chicago or to New York. It's a constant adjustment based on what's happening. And I think when we throw ourselves open and say yes to ourselves, and I'm going to ask you some more questions along those lines, we now become available to inspired wisdom that doesn't come from the figuring out part of our mind or the controlling or the manipulating part of our mind to make something happen. As you were saying, trying to get something from out there in the world, something unfolds from within us. It's like within the avocado seed, there's an avocado tree, it unfolds. Within the acorn, there's an oak tree, it unfolds. So I know for a fact that there's something about us that's real, eternal, forever, essential, one of a kind, unique. And when our divine yes factor is high enough, come what may, then there's an unfolding process that takes over. And it's been beautiful watching you over the years because you've had to say yes. And I imagine you've had some trepidation, some fear, some things you had to overcome in order to go to this stage of iteration of Russell that you are now, and so if you were to look back at yourself, if you were to look back and look at the younger Russell, what would you say to him now? I mean, if you could go back and say, Russell, hey.
Well, I wish I'd always known that it is all within me. I wish I'd always known that. I wish that I was born into a culture that recognizes the sacred and trains people for sacredness. But maybe I was, and maybe I am. Maybe I can't see the depth of the plan. But I wish that I'd been able to live a life where I hadn't been I hadn't been unconscious about my behavior and unconscious about the world. And I suppose that's what I would say to a younger version of myself, but I feel like I'm dying all the time. I feel like I'm dying all the time. And this thing you said about, serendipity and being willing to follow synchronicity and being available to that path that, I'm on the road at the moment, but I'm on what we would call holiday and what you would call vacation. And we're camping in a country called Wales, one of the countries of the British Isles. And, we're driving around in this van, Michael. We're just in a camper van, man. And it's sort of with my daughters and my wife, and it's crazy. We're just like, look at this beautiful mountain here.
Wow, look at that. That's beautiful. Mother
It's
Nature.
crazy. Yeah, there's my boy. And look at the sun. The sun is setting here, and we've been saying yes to things sort of continually on this trip. We've just been allowing it to unfold, it gets hot in that van and intense with two children and a dog and me and my ego and my will. And I keep praying and surrendering, and we stopped and pulled over when it was getting intense. We knew we weren't going to get to a campsite that we'd planned to get to. We pulled over and just asked someone for help, just someone on the side of the road. And this person let us get in the river, and he directed us to a restaurant, and the people at the restaurant directed us to another campsite, and the person at this campsite, Michael, was so beautiful, and I thought, I've got to come here and do a retreat here. What I mean to say is, you know, that famous, I think it's Thomas Aquinas said, the kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth and man sees it not.
A tree doesn't have a no. You plant the tree in the proper condition, bam, it grows. You know, a flower just grows. But we have such infinite potential to reflect the entire cosmos. We have to say yes, which is why we go through contrast. I mean, when you talked about your younger days and the ego running amok and the different circumstances and situations that were created because the ego running amok gave you contrast, so that when you came into the light, you started getting little glimpses of it. You had enough contrast to see, so, oh, this is the real deal here. This wasn't the real deal. That was a pleasure run amok. That was a pseudo pleasure. And then you started to taste joy and bliss without any external situations being the way you wanted them to be. But I think the way it's set up is that we get contrast so that once we really see it, we can't unsee it. And that even though there are moments in our life where you might be tempted or seduced or provoked or intimidated back into the egoic shell, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And you're totally uncomfortable until you get back to yourself, you know. And so you just described on your holiday, you had a plan to get to your site. Didn't work out that way, but you met a friend, you swam in a river, you went to a nice restaurant, you're now looking at a great mountain, you're outside, you know, so this may have been better than you just finding your site right away and camping out, you know, but you would have never met that guy or never jumped into that river without a deviation in the planning, you see. And I think that's a level of grace, actually, you know.
Yes.
It's a level of grace.
That's one of the things I would love to learn more about from you, is how to practice this grace as a father, how to practice this grace as a husband, how to grow through my work to become a better practitioner, to continue to be able to surrender my own wants and needs. You know, this is what I would like to learn from you. When I see you doing them sermons at Agape and channeling, I feel like, yeah, that's, you know, that you're you, man. I'm not saying that I want to be anybody else, even someone as great as you, but like I feel like I almost, like, I fall so in love with God that I can't bear anything else, you know, like, and I think I felt like that as a drug addict, man. I think I felt like that. I couldn't have anything but God. I think drug addicts, and I know you know this, are just trying to synthesize the experience of oneness, trying to synthesize the experience of connection. And I can still have that mentality. Like I want to live sometimes continually suspended in grace, continually suspended. And I still have a lot to let go of. And I wonder what you suggest.
Well, I think that when we have personalities, as you know, sub-personalities, we have roles that we play. And I think that when we enter into spiritual practice, we melt and the roles kind of dissolve. That's the crucifixion. The real crucifixion is the death of the different roles we're playing. And then the resurrection is that when the luminous being rises up, and it doesn't mean we don't have roles anymore, but the luminosity and the love infuses those roles. So you become a better father, become a better husband, become a better whatever it is your particular task or gift is, but you're no longer in a role about it. That's Russell being dad. That's Russell being husband. That's Russell being the comedian. That's Russell being the activist. But, you know, because I know myself, when I grew out of like being a minister, you know, it was like a box, like a role. This is a minister. This is what a minister's supposed to do, you know. But as Michael evolved with his love of God and this total surrender to the presence of God, didn't mean that I'm not a minister anymore, but there's no box around it as to how that should look, other than my moment by moment connection with the presence. So I can wear what I want to wear. I can put the shoes on that I want to put on. I can say the way I want to say it. I don't have to fit into somebody else's perspective of how I should be, because I'm not that role. I'm actually Michael, you know, as God made me. And of course, that journey is forever. It's like we're never done. You know, there's a completed idea within us that continues to unfold. And this is what I've loved about you. You know, you keep unfolding, you know, and I love, you know, that you say you're interested in awakening. I was looking at a little bit of your Instagram today, and you were speaking of the fact that you actually believe in awakening, that we can actually, as a humanity, actually awaken because of what you've gone through. Now I think the reason why I think that's so important, because a lot of times people will read books or they read channeled books and things like that. But when a man such as yourself has actually gone through stuff and has come out the other side, so to speak, I think your words have more power than a lot of the channeled material that people get, because those are disembodied spirits channeling information, which is inspirational. But when an individual has actually gone through hell and touched heaven, way more power, way more power. So you actually believe in awakening because of what's happened to you. Speak on that for a second.
I like it when you said like that you, in the end, you dissolve the roles and it just becomes like, it reminded me of something I read by a great English writer called Robert Macfarlane. He said that in some native language in the country you're in there, that they describe a river as rivering, like it is being a river in the moment, you know, and like it's not a noun, it's a verb, it's happening now in the moment. And I feel this beginning to happen, and like often I feel like, you know, like I don't want to be a comedian in the way that I was, or an actor. I want to, you know, I want to set up places and appear live and talk and set up communities and challenge the existing systems in ways that are appropriate and not destructive or painful for other people, because I know there's so much suffering now. I know there's so much suffering. I'm beginning to understand the core. I'm beginning to understand the cause, and I just feel like I'm continuing to let go of the things that tethered me to the old life. And I really like what you said there about letting go of those roles, because, you know, look, really, the reason I wanted to become a famous person is because I wanted to feel valuable. You know, even I'm an artist and I love performing and I love doing comedy, but you know, the culture tells you that if you can't turn what you do into money, then you ain't worth nothing. If you can't, through the fundamentalist faith of individualism, materialism, and rationalism, if you can't achieve according to those deep fundamentalist faiths, those, you know, that materialism and consumerism so deep in our culture that we can't even see the edges of it. You know, we don't even know we're living in a fundamentalist ideology. You know, I never would have invented the idea of becoming a celebrity or whatever. Now I think like I'm perhaps finally in a position to sort of step off of the rails that are laying out for us, the rails that prevent us being free, whether them rails are neurological ones or, you know, however you want to conceive of them. Like I like that way you put it, saying yes to yourself, allowing yourself to unfold the same way any other botanical biochemical entity might.
Right. So you had the experience of, you know, I often say religious people are trying not to go to hell, but spiritual people have already been there. You know, so you've had the experience actually going through hell to be able to touch heaven. So you know it's real, and you can actually see the matrix of gross materialism and consumerism and all the way people are living, as you've indicated. They don't even know they're caught in it, and their survival instinct has run amok. So they just want to get more and more and more and accumulate more and more and more and more and more. And you can never get enough of that which doesn't satisfy, you know. But once you see it, doesn't mean you can't be prosperous or healthy or have a great time. But that particular egoic structure that can never get enough is not running the show anymore. You can look at it and say, oh, there it is. It's trying to pop up. It's trying to take over, you know. And then through spiritual practice, through prayer and meditation and hanging with, as you were talking about, hanging with the masters, and then you start to slowly become aware of its conniving ways, you know, its subtle ways to try to creep back in. And as long as we have a body, we'll have an ego. Mm-hmm. But after a while, your priority, this is what I wanted to come to, your priority is awakening. once your priority to say yes to awakening and say yes to whatever your gift and talent is in that awakening process, everything conspires for your awakening. The good, the bad, and the ugly. You see, the good, the beautiful, it all conspires. And so
you mean full
you
surrender,
now,
Michael? You think full surrender? Like, you know, with Christians, they sort of say, you know, like, I fully surrendered to Jesus Christ, or in Islam, you know, fully surrendering to the Prophet. You know, like you think that even, I know you're a trans-denominational man, you know, like, so like, it's the, you say surrender to this great spirit that is beyond time and beyond space. Allow it to take over. Allow it moment to moment to take over.
come what may. Come what may. It's a total and complete surrender. And when I say surrender, I'm not talking about waving a white flag and giving up. I'm talking about surrendering to the next iteration of who we are. It's a caterpillar surrendering to the butterfly. It's you and me surrendering to the next stage of our unfoldment, of which the personality and the ego can't see it. It can't see into the unknown. It's the personality thinks it's committing suicide, you know, when it surrenders, but it's actually allowing that which we can't see by our sensorium, the five senses, to emerge. And then it shocks and surprises us that we can be in bliss and ecstasy and joy with nothing. You know, we can be in bliss and ecstasy. I was speaking about a man by the name of Clarence Chance a couple of weeks ago, and he was an individual that was sentenced to life in prison for a murder he didn't do. And his cousin belonged to Agape and asked us to pray for him. And ultimately, the Innocence Project got him out but he spent like 17 years in jail, but they finally got him out. But he was in his jail cell, and somebody had placed a book by Krishnamurti on his bed. And he began to read this book, and he went into the spiritual practice of not allowing the past to come into present moment. And he became free in prison. He became an artist, martial artist, a painter, be able to play musical instruments. So he's sitting in prison, but he was in total freedom. So then when he got out, you know, they had to compensate him for the time he spent in jail. So he had a lot of money, found his wife. But the first thing he said when he came to Agape service, he said, I was driving down the street and I saw these people, they were arguing with each other because they were in a car accident. He said they were just arguing over over metal, as if that was a big deal. It was just bent metal. It's not like nobody got hurt. Why would they? He couldn't. And then he saw people stepping on flowers to rush into the meditation service. He said, I saw more free people in prison than I see out here. And he reminded everybody about where the real freedom is, you see. And again, those roles dissolve, and we become more ourselves. And let's just talk a little bit about your activism, because you go hard on a lot of things, you know. And you really try to break people out of the matrix and let people know that what they're getting from the corporate media is most of the time is not really real. It's not really truth. It's just something to shape our perception. And I really appreciate when you go in on that, you know.
Yes. Well, I think that you cannot extract the spiritual life from the political life. I think our social systems are an expression of our spiritual state. And I think that in conjunction with government and the financial, powerful financial interests, the media is deliberately creating a kind of a state of suspended reality, of distraction. I don't think of it as individuals, like malevolent individuals. I don't know enough to say whether or not there are occultist organizations deliberately creating ignorance, but I can see that the sum total of the economic relationships that are in place provoke, promote, and sustain the aspects of our nature that we would be better off transcending. As a person with a body, I need to survive. As a human being, it's possible that I'm going to procreate, I'm going to eat, I'm going to have an instinct towards status. But when these instincts are promoted to us to a kind of this pinnacle state, this sort of delusional state, then we're not able to live in reality. Like your man there described running over flowers to get to meditation, or not being able to be free, and yeah, for me, like when I talk about, I don't know, media corruption, government corruption, financial corruption, I suppose it's just because I've had a degree of access because of the kind of life I've lived to people that are in sort of powerful positions. I've met really powerful, wealthy people that are not at all happy, because it can't ever work. And I've met people that are inside these institutions, and that's one area. When I'm in that area, Michael, I really have a sense that I understand. That I understand the deception. I understand it. I've awoken to that. The sun's just disappearing behind the horizon. It's so beautiful, mate. There's just a sort of a semicircle of glowing red sun left above the sea. It's so perfect and so beautiful here in this sort of campsite, just surrounded by people that I don't know. My dog's getting involved with those people over there. Hello there. Sorry about him. Hello. Hiya. Yeah. So
thank you for giving us a peek of that.
Yeah, this is what's going on.
Russell, you know what? I don't want to. Oh, look at that! It's beautiful. I don't want to take you away from your family and your holiday any longer. I just want.
You are my family. You are my holiday.
I appreciate your time, and we'll do this again. We'll spend some more time and dive in deeper into some of these other subjects. And I'm extremely grateful that you said yes to you.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.